From Pennsylvania is recognized.
I thank the gentleman, and I would yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Let me first, since it's my first appearance on the floor, since the tragic news of the Vice President's son's death, offer my condolences, and I'm sure all of my colleagues and the people of Philadelphia consider the Biden family one of our own, since they're nearby neighbors. But I also want to offer my sincere condolences and concern for the people of Texas, given the tragedy of the severe weather incidents there and the deaths that have occasioned the flooding. We rise today in moving an appropriations bill, the Commerce, Justice, Science bill, and the chairman and the ranking member from New York. I have assisted the subcommittee in its work. I want to thank the subcommittee chairman for all of the cooperation that has been extended. And he's pointed to a number of the circumstances in which he has helped make sure that priorities that we were interested in were accommodated in the bill. And I want to talk a little bit about that. One is in the area of brain science, neuroscience. The brain initiative is critically important. We have some 50 million Americans suffering from brain-related diseases or disorders. 50 million in a country of a little over 300 million is a very significant number. But the diseases themselves, everything from Alzheimer's to epilepsy, autism, brain cancer, in the case of the Vice President's son, a whole host of challenges that cost our country in not just financial ways, but affect so many families. And so I want to thank the chairman for his continued cooperation and work with me on what I think is the most important area of scientific discovery that we need to be focused on as a nation. Also in the area of youth mentoring, the work in terms of supporting our efforts to make sure that millions of the nation's young people have the appropriate guidance that they need through great congressionally chartered organizations like the Boys and Girls Club of America and YMCA and Big Brothers, Big Sisters, which is celebrating their 100th anniversary this month. So I want to thank him for that. And I could go on through a laundry list of areas in manufacturing and the like in which we work very closely together, and there's nothing that could be improved upon in terms of the process between the interactions between the majority and the minority on this bill. There is an elephant in the room, no pun intended, in the sense that the majority has a absolute view about the budget allocations given the Budget Control Act, and see that as something that limits our ability to meet the challenges of our great nation. The minority has a view that we need to move away from that budget control agreement and move away from these automatic caps and meet the needs, as the Constitution indicated that the Appropriations Committee's job was, to meet the needs of a great nation. And we know that there are needs that are not going to be met. The chairman just talked about how important our system of laws were. Well, in this bill, we fall short, at least at this moment, of what we need to fully do to fund the Legal Services Corporation, which was established under a Republican administration, but it provides services not to Democrats or Republicans, but to Americans all across our country, to provide access to the courts and to make sure that they can have a due process in civil litigations. And so we know that we're short there. We have a constitutional responsibility to fund the census, and we are going to, at this moment, fall shy of that. Now, we hope that we'll improve this bill. We can't improve the process, but we can improve the product as we go towards a conference with the Senate. But there are areas related to NASA in which, even though we funded above $18 billion, which is a historic commitment to NASA, that we still are not dealing with the pressing issue of fully funding commercial crew, which requires, we've now paid out a $500 million to our Russian counterparts to transport astronauts to the International Space Station. And we're going to have to continue that longer than we need to because we're not able, under the allocation, to meet our responsibilities in the needs on the commercial crew appropriation. Now, Galileo, 400 years ago, pointed us towards Europa, and I can tell you that I agree with the chairman that the need to fully explore and to bring back a sample and to do everything else necessary to fully understand what the potential may be is an important effort, but also funding space technology in our commercial crew programs, and I know the chairman agrees with me, are going to be important efforts for us to try to improve in this bill as we go towards a conference with the Senate. The minority can't shirk its responsibility to point out these shortcomings. Having pointed them out, I do want to make the point, though, that the working relationship is one that I think appropriately reflects the kind of process we want to have in the House. We want all views to be considered, and I know that every offering of a view from the minority has been fully considered by the chairman, and I thank him. I want to thank his staff, and I want to thank my staff of the committee because they worked very hard for us to come to this moment. And we are at a point in the process in which the majority will have its way. There eventually will be a Senate bill, but we also have to weigh in the administration's viewpoint in order to have a law of the land. And the administration has issued a statement from the administration on this bill. And it takes in appropriate ways, it compliments the subcommittee for its foresight on a range of points, but it also strongly recommends changes in directions and appropriations in a variety of areas that the administration thinks would hold our country back. So I think that there's a lot to be said about fiscal prudence. We need to make sure that we are operating in a fiscally responsible way. This nation, at its founding, at the point in which we had to separate ourselves from the British, we borrowed a few dollars. It cost us something at almost every point in the history of our country, as in the case for most families and most businesses, in which you had to make investments, in which sometimes those investments cause you to have an imbalance for a moment or for a period of time. But there's a reason why we have mortgages so that people can buy homes, and we invest in student loans so that young people can get an education. And there's a need for our country from time to time to look beyond the immediate balance of the books to understand what our calling is. And we say sometimes that we're an exceptional nation. Well, our exceptionalism requires us to have some foresight. And we know that this is an age of innovation and scientific discovery. Some suggested that there's nothing new under the sun, but we know that that's not so. Because just in recent months, we found the largest volcano on Earth, just discovered. We found in drought-stricken parts of Africa, deep down underneath the Earth, some of the largest aquifers of water. We've now discovered a warm-blooded fish for the first time ever, and a new species of bird in China. So this is not an age in which discovery is not possible. This is a time for our country where we should be investing in science and innovation. We have a need to, as a country of some, as I mentioned, just some 300 million plus, when we compete against billion-plus populated countries like China and India, we can't afford to leave any of our young people in the shadows. We can't afford to not invest in science and innovation. I want to thank the chairman for what he's done. I want to tell him that we're going to continue to work with him as we go forward, because I believe what we have here today is not a perfect bill, but the foundation for what will be, I think, the best Commerce, Justice, and Science bill that could be produced. It's a beginning of that process, and I want to thank him, and I look forward to the debate and the amendment process, and I would now reserve the balance of my time.